See how beautiful and crisp my rainbow room is? God, I wish I could get my rainbow crisp face to look like that. This next video is very important because I thought that critical race theory was just about stupidness, trying to make white people feel bad and weaponize other people, but I had no idea that it was a Marxist tool for takeover of America specifically. And this guy breaks it down. This is not the whole episode, but it's enough to show some of the mechanisms of what it's doing. And oh man, when they say critical, it's a double. Everything the enemy uses has the dual purpose, and they have theirs. Like it has a Mott and Bailey defensive means, so they can be defensive and never pushed back. You know, because your whiteness, you're using your privilege to hate me and my words and shit like that. But then it's weaponized because it says that everything is racist because that's the way to be. Instead of attacking the people with property, the bourgeois, they're just using racism to do it because it allows them to mess with people's emotions more. So check this out. Another extremely fucking, you can't listen to this shit.
The racial base produced a cultural product that was then exploited by whiteness, and the person of Elvis Presley and put out in the rock and roll explosion became a very white phenomenon that actually then separated itself and excluded the blues phenomenon from before it. And you can see that this is exactly in base versus superstructure thinking. Who gets access to the superstructure is people who have the kind of bourgeois golden ticket, or in this case whiteness. Cultural appropriation is the recreation, the accusation, you can't have tacos anymore because it's cultural appropriation or something. That's a recreation of that exact same mentality. That's where that comes from. It's just been filtered down into dumber and dumber words and more racism over the past century.
Okay, so you said and this is being taught everywhere. How far has it gotten into, like, major institutions or the military?
It's very far into them. In fact, it's very important to understand what it's being used for. There is this communist tactic called entryism. You make the conditions intolerable for people who are broad-minded or normal or outside of the ideology, so they end up quitting or getting in trouble or getting removed. No parallels to the vaccine there either, by the way. That's sarcasm. There's huge parallels. It's the exact same thing. And you get them out, and then you have a crisis if you don't have enough police or you don't have enough military, and China's got these wicked missiles, and what's going to happen next? Well, we need more, but you have a new DEI hiring policy in place, so you only hire compliant people, and the people that you excluded don't want to come back anyway because you've got all these stupid policies that are a constant thorn in their side and constant waste of time in meetings and constantly getting them in trouble for no good reason, constantly diverting from the actual purpose and tactics and mission of the job. And so you end up filling up you defund the police to replace it with a secret police. You defund the military to replace it with a state military.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah. So how far along are we? You asked both in schools. If we were going to chart, so the Chinese Cultural Revolution was from 1966 to 1976, and of course, some groundwork was laid before that, but that's 10 years. So I would say that if we counted on a scale of 1 to 10 and kind of used it as a model, I would say we're at somewhere in the United States at about 3.5. So it's not nearly as bad as people might fear that it is. But the momentum is going to carry us, best case scenario, into the 5 or 6 range right now, even if we all wake up and start pushing back right away. So there's going to be some massive damage.
Yeah, this critical race theory is specifically a tool for the Marxist. Instead of saying it's the economic situation, they say it's racism. And their terms like critical means it's a double word. They have That's why it's everywhere, because it is a tool to basically insert Marxist communism, which you don't want. You don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. And it's all designed to basically do what he just said, you know, defund the police to then put in the secret police. So they're moving right along
throughout the Western world, and we all have to hope China doesn't pounce upon that weakness, which of course they will, unless their businesses, their economy or whatever collapses out from under them independently, which is totally possible. But that's the precarious situation we find ourselves in. But we are not lost, and people are waking up to it much more quickly than if it were to succeed, people would have to have woke up much later. I don't want to say that there was some plan that when people might have become aware of it or anything like that, but for it to fully succeed as a cultural revolution, people would have had to have awakened much later than they have. So it's actually, I'm actually quite optimistic, believe it or not, right now. I've been very pessimistic for a year, but the speed at which people have cottoned on, and I think that's a racist thing in critical race theory, you can't say cotton, but because racism is present in everything. That is actually the first tenet of critical race theory. Racism is the ordinary state of affairs in society. It's so-called normal science. It's a direct quote. So ordinary state of affairs in society, right? So it's in everything. But people are much more aware of what it is now than is necessary if they're going to succeed. But this is where, you know, what's happening in the schools makes it is so relevant. I don't know what will happen. Obviously, the political top right now, the Biden administration, the administrations in many of the blue states, and then, you know, we look back to Canada, it's totally cooked. Canada's at like a 6, by the way. We're at like a 3.
Canada is in rough shape. I left. I'm actually worried about going back. Like, I'm worried if I go back, I somehow randomly won't be allowed to leave. It is scary over there.
Over a year ago, I tweeted, I said, here's all my advice, blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember what all the advice was, but one of the things was get out of Canada.
Yeah.
People were like, James has lost his mind. I was like, get out of Canada.
Yeah.
And guess what? Right again.
Yeah.
I can't tell you much
leave.
positive about your homeland.
Yeah.
Welcome to Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee's wonderful. Yeah. Where are you? Are you in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee. I'm in East Tennessee.
Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, this place is great. Little beacon.
Yep.
It's fantastic. Okay, so one thing we should cover, I guess, before we go is what if people do start to tune into this, and I think they have as well, probably. What happened with COVID and everything got ramped up so crazily. But what can people do? Like, what if their job is on the line and they're supposed to go through this training and they're supposed to comply? Like, what do people do?
Well, I can't tell anybody what to do in their specific situations, but I would strongly advise that you comply as little as you can. If you must comply, throw sand in the gears. I understand if you've got to keep your head down to protect your family or whatever. I have little patience left for that because we are at a tipping point. But
Team number 2.
I won't say that I don't understand.
Throw the sand in.
Exposure is not great for them. You know, you see all the pressure comes when something gets exposed. There's a huge expose that my friend Chris Rufo did, for example, last summer of the Sandia National Laboratory, which is where they also build advanced weaponry and house nuclear weapons and things, being completely inundated with these kinds of trainings. And it landed him, after he exposed it on Twitter, he lands on Tucker Carlson. He calls on the president at the time, Trump, to issue an executive order against critical race theory. And that really mainstreamed the whole fight. You have state after state after state trying to figure out legislative and administrative policy rules to be able to combat this, to protect citizens from it. So exposure is the first thing. Another thing is that you need to start finding other people who are also unsure about this. People need to get together.